1971 Mercury Comet. $1,500, Gilmer, Texas. We're kicking off this list with something that feels like it was pulled straight out of time capsule. A 1971 Mercury Comet that's been hiding in East Texas for decades, waiting for somebody to roll up their sleeves and bring it back to life. Price at just $1,500. This thing is about as close to a barn find deal as you can hope to stumble across in today's classic car market. Now here's the part that makes your eyebrows raise. The odometer shows only 39,000 miles. Let that sink in for a second. That means this car has been driven less than 800 miles per year on average since new. And when you stop to think about it, that figure isn't outlandish because the seller says it was last registered in 1982. That's right. This Comet has been sitting for more than 40 years. Imagine the life it's lived. Probably driven carefully by its original owner, maybe to the grocery store, church on Sunday, an occasional family trip. Then parked sometime in the early Reagan years and forgotten about until now. Under the hood, you're not looking at some finicky, high-strung performance engine that requires constant babysitting. Nope. This one's out for its bulletproof 250 cubic inch inline six. These engines have a reputation for being nearly indestructible, with simple carburation, minimal electronics, and a long stroke that makes them smooth and easy to live with. It's paired with a C4 automatic transmission, which is about as dependable as transmissions get. That combo makes this car perfect for somebody who wants to restore a classic, but doesn't want to be constantly worried about chasing down obscure parts or tuning something complicated. Here's another neat piece of trivia. This Comet left the factory with air conditioning. In 1971, C wasn't just a standard box checked on every order sheet. It was a real option, one that cost good money. Having factory IC adds value, and it makes this car way more practical if you plan to actually use it, especially if you live somewhere hot like Texas, Florida, or the Southwest. Now, it's not all sunshine and roses. Let's be real. After 40-plus years of sitting, the tires are all flat and completely unusable. The brake system is basically gone and will need to be replaced front to back. Master cylinder, well, cylinders, shoes, lines, the works. And the elephant in the room is that there's no title. Depending on your state, that can either be a small headache or a serious project in itself. But for the kind of buyer who isn't afraid to navigate the DMV process, that shouldn't be a deal breaker. The silver lining? The seller says the engine still runs and that the transmission still shifts into gear. That's a massive head start. Think about how many barn finds you see that are just frozen in place, engines locked up solid, transmissions missing, or drivetrains completely seized. Not here. This one at least wakes up, which means you've got a foundation worth saving. Sure, it's a four-door sedan, not the sleeker two-door coupe. And that means you probably won't have people swarming around it at the next Cars and Coffee. But on the flip side, the price reflects that $500 for a genuine classic with under 40K miles, factory ASC, and a one-owner story. It's affordable nostalgia. It's an entry-level way into the classic car hobby. And for some folks, that four-door body just adds to the charm. It's a reminder of how families used to travel back when seatbelts weren't even required. Bottom line, if you've ever wanted to roll the dice on a budget project car, this Mercury Comet is one of the cheapest tickets you'll find. For the cost of a weekend getaway or a new lawn tractor, you could own a genuine survivor from the golden age of American iron. Number 2, 1965 Buick Riviera Coupe 2D, $6,500, New Berlin, New York. Now let's leave Texas behind and cruise up to New York, where we find one of the most stylish American cars ever penned, the 1965 Buick Riviera. For $6,500, you're looking at a car that oozes mid-60s cool, even in project form. The Riviera was Buick's flagship personal luxury coupe, and it hit the streets with a mission to combine high style with power and comfort. By 1965, the Riviera had already established itself as a true competitor to the Ford Thunderbird. The second-gen cars are especially loved because of their sharp body lines, aggressive front end, and those iconic hidden headlights that seem to wink at you when they're closed. Park one of these on the street today, even unrestored, and you're guaranteed to get attention. This particular car is a project, no sugarcoating that. The seller says it's going to need body work, and the pictures probably back that up. But before you get discouraged, here's the important part. The car runs and drives. That right there puts you ahead of the curve. You're not dragging a lifeless Hulk home on a trailer, wondering if you'll ever hear the engine run. You're buying something that already moves under its own power. And mechanically, some very expensive work has already been handled. The brake system has been completely redone, including stainless steel brake lines. That's a huge bonus for both safety and longevity. Nobody likes dealing with rusty old brake lines or spongy pedals, so knowing that part of the job is already complete is worth a lot. The seller also mentions a brand new exhaust system that's ready to be installed. Imagine hearing that Buick V8 purr through fresh pipes once you bolt it on. That alone is motivation to get the car back on the road. Yes, the body needs love. The paint might be tired, the panels might need patches, and you'll probably spend some weekends learning how to weld or paying someone who does. But here's the thing. The 65 Riviera is one of those cars that's worth the effort. It has the right proportions, the right style, and commands respect whether it's bone stock, customized, or fully restomodded. Think about the possibilities. Maybe you want to go the restoration route, sourcing the correct trim, getting the chrome redone, spraying it in a factory-correct Buick color, and reliving the golden days of American cruising. Or maybe you go the other way, drop it on bags, tuck some wide white walls, and build it into a wild lowrider. Or, if you're more of a performance person, you could modernize it with a fuel-injected LS swap, new suspension, and disc brakes, creating a Riviera that looks classic but drives like a modern car. For $6,500, you're not buying a finished product. You're buying potential. You're buying a blank canvas with some of the hard parts already done. And in today's world, where even rusty, non-running shells of popular classics can fetch thousands, this Riviera feels like a deal. Number 3. 1971 Ford F-100, $5,200, Glassboro, New Jersey. At number 3, we got a good old-fashioned pickup truck that wears its age proudly, a 1971 Ford F-100 Custom, offered at $5,200 out of New Jersey. Trucks like this were once everywhere, hauling lumber, towing campers, and doing all the dirty jobs people bought trucks for. Now, they're collector items, hot rodding platforms, and daily drivers for folks who want something simple and mechanical. Powering this one is Ford's trusty 302 cubic inch V8, backed by an automatic transmission. The odometer shows 85,000 miles, which is quite respectable for a truck that spent more than 50 years on the road. Trucks were often worked to death, so finding one that hasn't cracked the 6-digit mark is pretty refreshing. But here's where it gets better. This truck isn't stock. It's been treated to some upgrades that make it both more fun and more reliable. BBK Shorty headers feed into glassback mufflers, which means when you fire it up, you're going to get that deep, old-school rumble that puts a grin on your face. It's also got an aluminum radiator to help keep things cool, plus new transmission cooler lines. Small details that mean someone's been maintaining this truck with care. A new heater core has already been installed too, which, if you've ever replaced one, you know is a nightmare job. That's one headache you don't have to worry about. Structurally, the cab is solid, which is a huge deal because rust in the cab corners and floors can turn into a massive project. The bed does need some work, but the seller is including 2 sets of replacement bedside sheet metal with the sale. Those panels aren't cheap, and having them on hand saves you both time and money. The truck has been lowered about 2 inches in the front and rear, giving it a nice stance without going overboard. And to top it off, all new trim and body moldings are included but not yet installed. That means once you finish the bodywork, you've got shiny new trim ready to go. Mechanically, it runs, drives, and stops. Everything works except the horn, and the carburetor could use a little attention. Nothing major, just typical old truck quirks. With a clean title and a $5,200 asking price, this Ford F-100 is a great starting point for somebody who wants a usable classic that they can improve over time. Number 4. 1973 Ford Maverick, $1,000, Cabot, Pennsylvania. Coming in at number 4 is the definition of bargain basement classic ownership. A 1973 Ford Maverick with an asking price of just $1,000. Yep, For less than the cost of a set of new tires on a modern pickup, you could drag home this vintage Ford. Now, the seller doesn't provide a lot of details, but here's what we know. The odometer shows just 40,000 miles. That's shockingly low for a car this age, and if it's even remotely accurate, it means this Maverick hasn't seen much use over the years. It's painted green, has an automatic transmission, and looks to be mostly complete. What's missing is context. How long has it been sitting? What's the condition of the interior? Does the engine turn over? We don't know, but at this price, you almost don't care. Even if it needs a brake job, new tires, and a tune-up, you're still coming out ahead. The Maverick was Ford's answer to compact imports in the early 70s. Affordable, simple, and easy to maintain, they became popular commuter cars and family runabouts. Today, they're quirky, lightweight classics that can either be restored to stock or turned into cool little hot rods with the right engine swap. For $1,000, this one's a blank slate. Maybe you revive it as a budget driver. Maybe you strip it for parts to help save another Maverick. Or maybe you drop in a 302 and build a sleeper that surprises people at stoplights. No matter what, it's cheap entry into the vintage car world. Number 5. 1974 Plymouth Fury. $3,000, Wetumpka, Alabama. Closing out this round, we're heading down Alabama for a big, bold hunk of Detroit iron. A 1974 Plymouth Fury in bright blue, asking $3,000. If you've ever wanted to experience what full-size American car really means, this is it. The Fury was huge, with enough sheet metal to make 2 modern sedans, and a road presence that commanded attention wherever it went. This particular example packs a 360 cubic inch V8 under the hood. The seller says the engine is still solid, but needs a new fuel pump to run properly. That's a relatively easy fix, and once you handle it, you'll be back in business. The mileage is listed at only 53,000, which is impressively low for a car this old. There's no mention of major rust, which is a big relief because these cars can rot badly if neglected. If the frame and floors are solid, this Fury could be a fantastic starting point for a number of different directions. You could bring it back to stock as a classic cruiser, reliving the days when full-size sedans ruled the road. You could go rest-a-mod, adding modern suspension and fuel injection while keeping the big body look. Or you could even turn it into a wild custom. Imagine this thing slammed on big wheels with a lumpy cam 440 under the hood. At just $3,000, it's hard to argue with the value. For not a lot of money, you're getting a running when parked Mopar V8 sedan that still has a lot of life left in it. Whether you see it as a budget cruiser, a platform for a crazy build, or just an affordable way to own a piece of Mopar history, the 74 Fury delivers a lot of steel for the dollar. Number 6. If you've been dreaming about getting into the world of classic cars, but you don't exactly have a bottomless wallet, this one might be your perfect gateway project. Sitting quietly down in San Marcos, Texas, is a 1974 Mercury Comet Coupe. The kind of car that won't win you a drag race right out of the gate, but will definitely earn you nods of appreciation from anyone who knows what they're looking at. The best part? The asking price is almost shockingly low, just $2,000. And if you roll up with a trailer ready to haul it away, the seller will even let it go for $1,500. That's barely more than what some folks spend on a new riding mower. Yet here you've got a whole mid-70s Ford product with a story to tell. Now, the Mercury Comet has always been a bit of an underdog in the classic car scene. Back in its day, it lived in the shadow of its more glamorous cousin, the Mustang. But that's what makes it interesting now. Where the Mustang was built to scream, "Look at me!" with all the flash and performance hype, the Comet carried itself with quiet confidence. It was based on the Ford Maverick platform, which means parts are still relatively easy to come by. And it shares enough DNA with other Ford products that you're not going to go broke hunting down impossible to find trim pieces. For a do-it-yourselfer, that's gold. This particular Comet left the factory wearing a sharp black and silver two-tone paint scheme. The harsh Texas sun has since worked its magic, and what used to gleam is now faded and tired. But you can still make out the bones of a good-looking little coupe. The seller admits the car was given to them, and it actually did run about a year ago. Since then, it has been sitting idle, and nature has started to reclaim it. There's surface rust along the panels. The paint is chalked over, The tires are completely flat, and there's even some grass and weeds growing up around the wheels like the car is slowly trying to disappear back into the earth. But here's the thing, the shell is still solid. The lines are all intact. The doors and fenders look straight. Beneath the wear and neglect lies a platform that, with enough determination, could be transformed into something really special. Power comes from a straight-six engine, mated to an automatic transmission. No, it's not going to set the drag strip on fire, but it's a reliable, straightforward setup. These old inline sixes are famously simple to work on, which makes them great for anyone still learning their way around a wrench. The drivetrain's current health is unknown. Figure on a full fluids flush, maybe even a rebuild, and absolutely plan to bring a trailer, because this car does not currently run. One complication worth mentioning is paperwork. There's no title and no keys. For some folks, that's a deal breaker. But for the right buyer, it's just another challenge to overcome. If you know how to navigate the DMV system, or if your state offers bonded titles, it's very possible to get this car back on the road legally. Worst case scenario, you've still got a rolling parts donor that could breathe new life into another project. The seller also notes that the dash is original, and the back seat is filled with a collection of spare parts, odds and ends that might save you money down the line. Is this car for everyone? Absolutely not. It's for the person who sees potential where others see junk. It's for the student who wants to learn engine basics without risking an expensive mistake. It's for the father and son who want to spend weekends together in the garage, bonding over busted knuckles and greasy hands. It's for the Ford enthusiast who wants something a little different than the millionth Mustang at the next car meet. At the end of the day, the Mercury Comet is about as pure as it gets. Clean lines, no nonsense, unique badge, unmistakable 1970s attitude. It needs everything. Paint, interior, mechanical love. But at this price, the risk is almost non-existent. You've got way more to gain than to lose. And isn't that exactly what makes project cars so rewarding? Number 7. Now let's move on to something with a whole lot more muscle and flash. A 1977 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme T-Top Coupe. This one's up in Hastings, New York, with an asking price of $4,500. And right off the bat, let me just say, this isn't your run-of-the-mill Cutlass. This car has some serious attitude, thanks to what's hiding under the hood. We're talking about a 455 cubic inch big block V8. That's right, the kind of engine that wasn't even offered in these cars from the factory. It's been swapped in, and suddenly this otherwise respectable personal luxury coupe is transformed into a street machine with real bite. This isn't just about horsepower, though that's plenty impressive. It's about torque, mountains of it, the kind that pins you to the seat when you tap the gas, the kind that makes bystanders turn their heads when they hear that deep, chest-rattling exhaust note. It's paired with an automatic transmission that's operated via a floor shifter, further enhancing its muscle car persona. Styling-wise, the 77 Cutlass Supreme is a stunner in its own right. Long hood, short deck, wide grille, sharp body lines. It's one of those cars that looks powerful even when it's standing still. And the T-tops? That's the cherry on top. Nothing screams 1970s cool like popping those panels off on a summer day and cruising down the road with the wind in your hair. It's not just driving, it's an experience. The seller says they picked the car up last year in Pennsylvania, and it now carries a New Jersey title. That's good news for anyone worried about ownership headaches. Even better, the car runs and drives right now. That alone sets it apart from a lot of other projects at this price point, which usually require flatbeds and a lot of imagination. The frame is described as perfect, which, for a Northeast car, is practically a miracle. Frames up here tend to rot, and once they're gone, the car is gone. This one's bones are solid. That said, it's still a project. The current owner hasn't had the time or the space to really go through it, so you should expect to do some work. Think of it as unfinished business. Fluid changes, minor mechanical adjustments, interior finishing. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to keep you busy. And really, isn't that half the fun? Opportunities like this don't come around often. A big block Cutlass Supreme with T-tops, already running and driving, with a solid frame, all for under $5,000? That's a recipe for a rewarding build. Whether you want a street cruiser, a weekend warrior, or just a piece of 1970s muscle luxury nostalgia, the seller does note they work during the day. So call after 4 p.m. and they'll be out of town until Sunday afternoon. But if you're serious, this is one worth waiting on. Number 8. Now here's one of those listings that tugs at the emotions just as much as it fires up the imagination. A 1972 Ford Gran Torino, offered for only $1,200 in Jasper, Georgia. On paper, it's a beat-up old car sitting out back. But in reality, this one carries something that money can't always buy: deep family history. According to the seller, this Torino belonged to their grandfather, which immediately turns it from just another old Ford into a rolling heirloom, a four-wheel memory that once played a part in family life. Back in the early 70s, the Ford Gran Torino represented that sweet spot between muscle car performance and everyday practicality. It wasn't as wild as a Mustang Boss or as upscale as a Lincoln, but it was stylish, broad-shouldered, and had just enough muscle under the hood to keep things exciting. Pop culture immortalized it later, from Starsky and Hutch to Clint Eastwood's film Gran Torino. But even without the Hollywood fame, the car stands tall as a quintessential piece of American design from that era. This particular Torino left the factory with a 351 Windsor V8, mated to an automatic transmission. Unfortunately, you won't be able to admire the motor just yet because the hood is stuck shut. That's going to be the first puzzle to solve. But it also adds to the car's survivor mystique. What's hiding under there? Is it a tired old block waiting for its first turn in decades? Or is it still relatively intact, begging for a new carb and a tune-up? You won't know until you crack it open. And that mystery is part of the adventure. The seller admits the car has been sitting since the early 2000s. Before that, it served as yard art, which sounds poetic until you realize what that means. Decades of exposure to the weather. As such, this is very much a project car. Expect rust in the usual problem areas: rockers, floors, fenders. Expect cloudy glass, mismatched or missing trim, and tires that haven't seen air in a generation. The title is missing as well. So whoever takes this on will need to be comfortable dealing with the DMV, applying for a bonded title, or pursuing whatever registration path their state allows. Now, why would anyone sign up for that much work? Because beneath the grime, the rust, and the neglect, the essence of the Gran Torino still pulses. The profile is unmistakable. Those sweeping lines, the broad stance, the long hood. Even covered in dust and with weeds curling up its sides, you can still see the proud silhouette. For the right person, this is more than a car. It's a chance to bring a family heirloom back to life, to restore not just steel and chrome, but memories. And the possibilities? Endless. You could go the pop culture route and recreate the Starsky and Hutch look with that iconic red paint and white stripe. You could embrace the patina, leaving the body weathered while rebuilding the mechanicals, turning it into a ratty yet roadworthy cruiser. Or you could take it all the way back to stock, honoring the grandfather's car with full restoration that looks like it just rolled out of a 1972 showroom. At $1,200, it's priced not as scrap, but as a project begging for a second chance. In a world where clean Torinos are climbing in value, this one is an affordable shot at saving a piece of family history. The only question is, who's willing to step up and give it the new chapter it deserves? Number 9. Now let's rewind the clock even further, back to the early 1960s, when personal luxury coupes weren't just cars, they were statements. Up for grabs in Greenwood, Maine, is a 1964 Ford Thunderbird finished in a breathtaking shade of gold with a perfectly matched tan interior. The asking price is $8,000, and for that, you're buying not just a classic automobile, but an experience, a slice of mid-century confidence and flair. Under the hood lives a legendary Ford 390 cubic inch V8, a motor celebrated for its smooth power delivery and long-legged cruising ability. Paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission, this powertrain was built to glide effortlessly down the highway, eating up miles in silence while giving the driver that reassuring surge of torque whenever it was needed. The seller reports that the car still runs great, which speaks to both its maintenance and the inherent durability of Ford's FE Series engines. One of the biggest selling points here is how the car has been stored. Maine winters are notorious for chewing up sheet metal, but this Thunderbird has been kept indoors, spared from the salt and snow that often doom classics in the Northeast. That preservation shows. The odometer reads 98,000 miles, which is respectable for a car this age, and exterior body panels appear straight and true. The chrome trim still sparkles, the lines are crisp, and the iconic Thunderbird silhouette remains as captivating as it was 60 years ago. Step inside and you're greeted by an interior that feels more like a jet cockpit than a car. That was by design. Ford marketed the Thunderbird as a personal luxury vehicle, and it shows in every detail. The sculpted bucket seats cradle you. The sweeping center console, stretching from the dash to the rear, looks like an aircraft instrument panel. The tan vinyl upholstery adds warmth and elegance, complementing the exterior gold paint perfectly. The dash is intact, the instruments are clear, and even the original steering wheel still commands attention with its bold styling. Back in 1964, the Thunderbird wasn't about raw performance. It was about projecting success, sophistication, and style. It was the kind of car you bought when you wanted people to notice, when you wanted to roll up somewhere and immediately make a statement. And honestly, it still does that today. You can't help but turn heads in a car like this. It's more than transportation. It's theater. Whether you choose to preserve it as is, enjoying survivor quality, or take it further with a careful restoration, this Thunderbird offers tremendous reward. Every time you fire up that V8 and ease it down a country road, you're not just driving, you're time traveling. And at $8,000, it's a remarkably fair entry into the world of early 60s personal luxury. Number 10. Finally, let's step into the early 1980s, a time when American muscle was trying hard to keep its flame alive despite tightening emissions rules and changing tastes. For anyone craving an affordable entry into that era, here's a prime candidate. A 1981 Pontiac Firebird Coupe 2D, located in North Smithfield, Rhode Island, with an asking price of just $3,800. The seller says it starts right up, and even ran recently using a fuel bottle. That tells you a lot. The fundamentals are there, but the fuel system needs some attention. Maybe a pump, maybe new lines, maybe just a thorough cleaning. Either way, it's a relatively straightforward fix. Beyond that, it'll need new brake lines, transmission cooler lines, and some exhaust work before it's truly roadworthy. The good news? A brand new set of headers is included with the sale, so you've already got a head start on giving it the proper Pontiac rumble it deserves. The real gem here, though, is the body and frame. Anyone who's hunted old Firebirds in the Northeast knows the sad truth. Rust destroys most of them, but not this one. The seller says it's structurally sound, and that's a rare and valuable trait. Even better, a new trunk pan has already been installed, saving you time, money, and a whole lot of aggravation. That means instead of spending your weekends welding, you can spend them actually building. Now, let's be clear. This Firebird is bare bones at the moment. The paint isn't perfect. The interior isn't showroom. You're not buying a finished product. What you're buying is a blank canvas, a platform, and that's the beauty of it. You get to decide the direction. Do you want to go resto mod with a modern LS swap and coilover suspension? Do you want a throwback drag car with slicks out back and a rowdy cam up front? Or do you want to bring it back to stock, honoring its roots as one of Pontiac's most recognizable coupes? The choice is yours. The Firebird name still carries weight, and these cars are disappearing fast. Affordable examples with good bones are almost gone, snapped up by builders or parted out. This one gives you the essentials. Strong structure, clean lines, and that unmistakable late muscle car attitude. For under $4,000, that's tough to beat. So, bring your trailer, bring your tools, and bring your vision, because this bird is ready to fly again. It just needs the right person to give it wings. Number 11, 1974 Jeep CJ, $1,200, East Aurora, New York. If you ever dreamed of owning a true piece of off-road history, something raw, unpolished, and dripping with potential, then this 1974 Jeep CJ in East Aurora, New York, should make you perk up a little. Priced at just $1,200. It's one of those rare chances to get your hands on a genuine early civilian Jeep without having to empty your wallet. Of course, this isn't a vehicle you'll be driving home the same day. It's offered as a non-running project, but that's exactly what makes it so interesting. Let's start with the obvious. The Jeep is finished in a faded red paint job that's seen better days. It's not glossy, not polished, and not pretending to be a show car. It's worn down by time and weather, which actually makes it look more authentic, almost like a living artifact. Inside, you get a no-nonsense black interior that reflects the same utilitarian spirit Jeep has always been known for. No fancy trim, no cushy padding, just the bare minimum you need to get the job done. And really, that's what makes these old CJs so special. They're about utility, freedom, and durability, not about comfort or luxury. The seller doesn't give us much in terms of detail, which at first might sound frustrating, but in reality, it adds a sense of mystery and excitement. When you buy something like this, you're not just buying a vehicle. You're buying an adventure, a project that will unfold piece by piece as you dig into it. This is not a car for someone who wants instant gratification or an easy flip. It's a blank slate, waiting for the next owner to decide its destiny. Now, let's talk about the significance of the early CJ models. These Jeeps are the foundation of everything we think about when we hear the word Jeep. They were built tough, with solid axles, a short wheelbase, and a frame designed to take abuse out in the wild. They're the definition of rugged simplicity, and because of that, they're adored by the Jeep community. And the best part? They have some of the best aftermarket support of any classic 4x4. Need new leaf springs? Easy. Want a fresh tub? You can order one. Dreaming of turning it into a rock crawler? There's an endless catalog of parts to help you get there. But here's the catch, and it's always the catch with a CJ, the frame. That's the first thing you check. If the frame is solid, you're in the clear. Everything else, from the engine to the seats to the wiring, can be replaced, rebuilt, or upgraded. But if the frame is too far gone, then you're in for a much bigger challenge. Assuming the bones are good, this could be the beginning of something special. What could you do with it? Well, the possibilities are nearly endless. Some folks might want to go for a full frame-off restoration, bringing it back to exactly how it looked in 1974, right down to the paint and the period-correct wheels. Others might see it as the perfect base for a hardcore off-road build, with bigger axles, lockers, oversized tires, and maybe even a V8 swap. Or maybe you just want to get it running again, keep the patina as is, and use it as a weekend trail toy, the kind of rig you don't worry about scratching or denting, because that's what it was made for. At the end of the day, this 1974 Jeep CJ is not for the faint of heart. It's for someone with vision, mechanical skills, and the patience to take a pile of parts and turn it into something truly great. It's for someone who understands that half the fun is in the build, not just the drive. For just $1,200, you could be the next chapter in this Jeep's long story. Number 12. 1973 Cadillac Eldorado convertible, $6,500, Rolesville, North Carolina. Now let's take a complete left turn, from Spartan off-road warriors to full-blown American luxury excess. Meet the 1973 Cadillac Eldorado convertible, offered for $6,500 in Rolesville, North Carolina. If subtlety isn't really your thing, if you like your cars big, bold, and brash, this Eldorado is calling your name. This isn't just another Cadillac. Though, no, this one has been given a cosmetic treatment inspired by the Batmobile, and once you hear that, it's impossible to unsee it. With its sweeping lines, exaggerated presence, and sheer size, it's as much a showpiece as it is a car. Honestly, it's the kind of thing you could park at the head of a parade, and people would think it was supposed to be there. Under the massive hood lies something truly legendary. The 500 cubic inch Cadillac V8, the largest production engine ever put in a factory passenger car. That's 8.2 liters of American iron, and it's every bit as outrageous as it sounds. Coupled with a 3-speed automatic transmission and, believe it or not, front-wheel drive, this thing has torque for days. Stomp on the gas hard enough, and those huge front tires will actually chirp, which feels absurd in a car that's longer than some people's driveways. Mileage? The odometer is stuck, but the seller estimates around 100,000 miles. It's got a clean title, which is always reassuring when you're dealing with a 50-year-old convertible. Condition-wise, let's set expectations. The car is not currently running. It needs freeze plugs replaced and the battery is toast. The convertible top mechanism works thanks to a new motor, but the fabric itself is worn out and needs to be replaced. The seller describes the car as needing TLC and elbow grease, and that's probably the best way to put it. This is not something you'll hop in and drive across town tomorrow. It's been sitting in a shed, waiting for someone to drag it back into the sunlight. But there's good news. Before its downtime, this Eldorado was actually a reliable cruiser, and it was a regular at car shows. The owner kept up with maintenance, even doing oil changes every 3,000 miles. That history counts for something, because it tells you this wasn't a car that was completely neglected. It just fell out of regular use. The big picture here is this. You're not buying a low-effort driver. You're buying a statement piece, a car that makes people stop and stare, a car that makes people ask questions. Once it's running again, it's the kind of thing that dominates a parking lot just by existing. Whether you restore it fully, keep the Batmobile theme alive, or just make it roadworthy and enjoy the reactions, this Cadillac Eldorado is guaranteed to turn heads. Subtle? Not even close. But that's exactly the point. Number 13. 1979 Subaru Brat plus spare parts for $1,900, Herndon, Virginia. Now for something completely different, a 1979 Subaru Brat. Finished in Kia Sunset Orange and sold with what might be the single largest collection of spare parts you'll ever find with a project car. Offered at $4,900 without the roof spoiler or $5,200 if you want the vintage snug top roof spoiler with off-road lights. This package is like hitting the jackpot if you're a Subaru enthusiast. For those who don't know, BRAT stands for Bi-Drive Recreational All-Terrain Transporter, which is a mouthful, but what it really means is half car, half truck, and all quirk. Subaru made these little oddballs in the late 70s and early 80s, and they've since become cult classics thanks to their unusual design and playful personality. They even came with rear-facing jump seats in the bed, technically to dodge import taxes, but in reality, it just added to the weird charm. Now, this isn't just a Brat. This is a Brat with a treasure chest of parts. We're talking OEM wheels with trim rings, spare fenders, a full spare engine and transmission from another 79 Brat, an extra carb and intake manifold, front struts, outer door handles, a speedometer cable, and more. Basically, enough to build half another car if you wanted. It's clear the seller is an enthusiast who's been collecting these pieces over the years, and it's all included in the deal. The car itself has had an interesting history. About 20 years ago, someone attempted a cosmetic restoration. They swapped the interior to black, laid down tan carpet, even carpeting the dashboard, patched up rust spots with body filler, and resprayed the car in that bright orange. Rough around the edges? Sure, but it gave the little trucklet a new lease on life. About 12 years ago, the current seller picked it up. By then, rust was starting to peek through again on the fenders and rockers, but the car still had good bones. Unfortunately, it was later parked at a friend's property, partially uncovered and with the windows open. Moisture crept in, the carpets held onto it, and now the floors have significant rust issues. The seller admits this is a sore spot, but recently, they brought it back to life. After fresh fluids and a jump start, the car fired up and ran surprisingly well. The steering feels tighter than expected. The suspension still holds its own, and overall it drives better than you'd think for something that sat so long. Of course, quirks abound. The speedometer cable still needs to be installed. The AC doesn't work. The heater blower only works on high. Cold starts reveal some hesitation, probably due to vacuum issues. There's a makeshift ignition switch, exhaust leaks, and turn signals that don't self-cancel. None of these are fatal flaws, but they do remind you that this is very much a project. Still, for the price, you're getting a running, driving vintage Subaru Brat plus a mountain of parts. That's a big deal in today's market, where these cars are rare enough that just finding one is noteworthy. If you're a fan of Japanese oddballs and you want something with character for days, this is the one. Just don't try trading your boat. The seller's already said no to that idea. Number 14. 1990 Dodge Ramcharger 4x4, $800, Salem, Ohio. On the other end of the spectrum from quirky Subarus, we got a bruiser of a project. A 1990 Dodge Ramcharger 4x4, priced at just $800 in Salem, Ohio. At that price, You know it's not going to be a turnkey driver. It's a project, plain and simple, but for the right kind of enthusiast. Someone who sees potential where others see problems. This could be a bargain gateway into the world of classic Dodge trucks. Under the hood sits a 318 cubic inch V8, paired with an automatic transmission. The good news? The engine isn't seized, it turns over. The bad news? It's not currently running. Add to that a transmission with no reverse gear, and you've got some drivetrain work ahead of you. The structural side isn't perfect either. There's a hole in the frame near the rear passenger side body mount, which is a serious issue that will need welding and careful reinforcement. This isn't just cosmetic rust. This is something you'll need to fix properly if you want the truck to be safe and roadworthy. So why would anyone bother? Because ramchargers from this era are finally starting to get the recognition they deserve. With their boxy styling, short wheelbase, and undeniable presence, they're becoming a popular choice for collectors, off-roaders, and even retro overlanding builds. Compared to Blazers and Broncos of the same period, they're still affordable, but that won't last forever. For $800, you're buying a blank slate. If you got the tools, skills, and maybe even a donor chassis, you could turn this into a very cool truck. Whether you go full restoration, resto-mod, or just build it into a gnarly trail rig. The potential is here. It's just up to you to unlock it. Number 15, 1979 Ford Bronco Sport. $3,000, Duxbury, Massachusetts. Finally, let's wrap this run with a big piece of classic Ford muscle, a 1979 Ford Bronco Sport. Priced at $3,000 in Duxbury, Massachusetts. This is the kind of truck that oozes 70s charm, big, bold two-door, and built to go anywhere. But before you picture yourself cruising down the road with the top off, let's set expectations. This Bronco comes with no paperwork, which means you're either looking at a parts donor, an off-road toy, or a long fight with the DMV to get it road legal again. Still, for the right person, that challenge might be worth it. Under the hood sits a 351 V8, though its exact condition isn't known. The seller has hinted they might try to fire it up for serious buyers, so there's a chance it could run. Either way, you've got the right kind of engine in there, and part support for these Fords is excellent. The body? Described as restorable, depending on your standards. Translation? It's rough but not hopeless. What really sweetens the deal here is the Curry 9-inch rear axle that comes with it. For those not in the know, Curry makes some of the strongest and most desirable axles you can get, especially for off-road applications. The seller has even said it could be sold separately from the truck, which means that piece alone carries a lot of value. This isn't a plug-and-play collector truck. It's not polished, it's not turnkey, and it's not for someone who wants instant gratification. But if you're a Bronco fanatic, this is tempting. The 1979s are especially desirable because they were the last of the first-generation full-size Broncos before Ford downsized the platform. Collectors love them, off-roaders love them, and values are only climbing. For $3,000, you're buying more than just a rough old truck. You're buying a platform, a starting point, a blank canvas with a lot of possibilities. Whether it ends up as a parts donor, a hardcore trail rig, or the foundation of a full-blown restoration, it's got the bones of something special. Number 16, 1975 Plymouth Valiant. $1,200, Morenci, Michigan. Here's something you don't come across every day. A 1975 Plymouth Valiant being sold as a project for just $1,200. Now, before you start imagining hopping in and cruising it down the road, let me make it absolutely clear. This is a non-running, incomplete car at the moment. The engine and transmission that originally powered it are no longer with the car. From the factory, this particular Valiant left Plymouth's assembly line with the trusty Chrysler Slant 6 under the hood, paired with an automatic transmission. That combo was simple, bulletproof, and known for running forever with just basic maintenance. Unfortunately, it's gone now, leaving behind a clean slate for whoever picks this car up next. The silver lining? This body is remarkably solid for its age. If you looked at mid-70s Mopars in the Midwest, you know they're usually Swiss cheese by now, but this one is described as having minimal rust. Sure, You'll probably find some spots here and there, but overall it's not the kind of rust that scares you away from a project. It's the kind you can tackle and fix without feeling like the whole car is about to fall apart. That makes it an excellent candidate for a restoration hot rod build, or even just a simple backyard project to get back on the road. On top of that, it's not like everything was thrown out when the motor was pulled. The seller mentions that many of the original bolt-on engine components, things like brackets, pulleys, carburetor parts, and other underhood accessories, were saved and are currently stored in the trunk. That's a nice bonus, because hunting down those little pieces can be a pain, and it means you've got a good starting point if you decide to either track down another slant 6 or go a different route altogether. Maybe dropping in a small block 318, 340, or even a 360 if you want to give it some extra muscle. Paperwork is another strong point here. The car comes with a clean Indiana title, so you won't have to deal with headaches at the DMV or trying to register something with a salvage history. The seller is asking $1,200 cash, firm. They're not offering to ship or deliver. You'll need to come to Morenci, Michigan to pick it up. And as far as pictures go, their stance is simple. If you want more than what's listed, just come look at it in person. This is a straight shooting kind of deal. What you see is what you get. So, if you've been on a hunt for a Mopar project that's affordable, has good bones, comes with clean paperwork, and leaves you with plenty of room to make it your own, this 1975 Plymouth Valiant might be just a ticket. It's not for somebody looking for a quick driver. It's a project. But if you've got the vision, it could turn into something really cool. Number 17. 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88. $3,500. Lima, Ohio. Next up is a big, classic cruiser from the land of chrome and long hoods, a 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88. The seller has it listed for $3,500. And while it's not perfect, it's a fairly complete car that's ready for someone to roll up their sleeves and bring it back to life. Let's start with the good news. This Delta 88 still has its 350 cubic inch V8 under the hood. That's an Oldsmobile built motor, not just a random small block. And the seller insists that it's a good engine. The issue is with the transmission. It needs work, which means the car isn't currently road ready. You'll have to address that before you're driving it anywhere. But having that original style 350 sitting there already is a big plus, because many cars you find in this price range are either missing their engines completely or stuffed with the wrong drivetrain. Cosmetically, it's not showroom fresh. Rust is present, which is pretty much par for the course on any Midwest car this era. It'll need attention in the bodywork department if you want it to look as good as it did when it was new. But again, that's part of the appeal for someone who's specifically looking for a project. This is the kind of car you can fix up over time, either returning it to stock or turning it into a custom cruiser. The 1973 model year was also notable in Oldsmobile history. This was the first year of the new Colonnade styling, with its big, flowing line slab sides and heavy chrome bumpers. These cars were all about space and comfort, with interiors built for long road trips and a presence on the road that couldn't be ignored. Even sitting still, a Delta 88 looks like it's ready to eat up highway miles. The seller sums it up pretty plainly. This car needs a transmission, has a good motor, and it's got rust. At $3,500, you're paying for a complete car with solid bones and a factory V8. And while it's not going to be a weekend driver right away, it's a great platform to start with if you've been itching to get into an early 70s GM land yacht. Number 18. 1993 Chevrolet Silverado K 1500, $1,575. Napoleon, Ohio. Here's a truck that strikes a balance between affordable, functional, and project-worthy. This 1993 Chevrolet Silverado K 1500 is up for grabs at $1,575, and it's being sold as a solid runner that comes with a few quirks, but also a lot of positives. The seller says it runs good, drives smooth, handles well, and stops properly. So mechanically, it's in decent shape for its age. It's also had quite a few new parts installed, which means some of the common maintenance items have already been dealt with. On top of that, it's been cared for with routine oil changes every 3,000 miles using nothing but Mobil 1 synthetic oil. That detail alone says a lot about the owner's maintenance habits. This truck wasn't neglected. The four-wheel drive system is in working order. which is a big deal if you live in an area with rough winters or if you just want something you can rely on for off-road use. However, the truck does have frame rust. That's the reality of any Midwest truck from this generation. The good part is that a mechanic has looked it over and said it's still safe to drive. Still, the seller strongly encourages any potential buyer to come out and inspect the frame for themselves so there are no surprises. Another issue worth noting is the radiator. It leaks when the engine is cold, which isn't ideal. The seller already has a used replacement radiator, but they haven't had the time to install it yet. That part will come with the sale. Price-wise, the seller is firm at $1,700. No lower, no trades, cash only. They're also very clear about the fact that the picture provided are the only ones you'll see, so study them carefully before you reach out. If you're serious, plan on coming to Napoleon, Ohio, to take a look. All in all, this is a decent, inexpensive 90s Chevy truck that's still roadworthy and could serve as either a daily beater, a work truck, or a starting point for a bigger build. Number 19. 1993 Ford F-150 XLT Pickup. $1,500. Salina, Ohio. Here we have a 9th generation Ford F-150, specifically a 1993 model in XLT trim with the long bed, listed at just $1,500. This is a budget-friendly truck that's been used as a spare vehicle and still has a lot of life left in it if you're looking for something simple and functional. This one's a two-wheel drive model, powered by Ford's legendary 4.9-liter straight-six engine, paired with an automatic transmission. That engine is one of Ford's most reliable power plants, known for running forever with just basic care, and the seller says it runs and drives pretty well. The rear end has been upgraded with a 3.55 limited slip unit, which should make it a little more capable and fun compared to an open diff setup. On the interior side, it's been modernized with a Bluetooth head unit and kicker speakers, so you've got a solid sound system to go along with your drive. The fuel system has also seen attention. The truck has dual tanks, but the front tank has a slight seat when filled all the way. It's still usable, but the seller mainly used the rear tank until that failed. At that point, a brand new rear tank was installed, so you've got at least one solid, reliable tank to run off of. The deal also comes with some extras, a spare set of headlights, an extra grille, and some spare tires. Not everything is perfect, though. The fuel gauge on the dash cluster doesn't work. The interior could use a serious cleaning, and the wiper motor is bad, meaning the windshield wipers don't currently function. The truck comes with a clean title and has been serving duty as a spare vehicle, described by the seller as a beater with a heater. It's been useful, but with newer vehicles in the driveway, it's just not being used anymore. For $1,500 cash, it's yours. No trades accepted. Number 20. 1997 GMC Sierra 1500. $2,500. Toledo, Ohio. To wrap things up, here's a late 90S GMC Sierra 1500 that's a bit of a mixed bag in the best way possible. The seller is asking $2,500, and what you're getting is a truck that looks great on the outside but has a big mechanical issue under the hood. Let's start with the good. The body and frame are described as rust-free and very clean. That alone makes this truck stand out, because by now most GMC and Chevy trucks of this generation in the Midwest are riddled with rust. This one isn't, which is a huge plus if you're looking for something worth investing in. The downside is the engine. It's got the factory 5.7-liter Vortec V8, but has developed a rod knock. That means it still runs and drives, but it's not healthy, and it'll need to be rebuilt or replaced sooner rather than later. If you're handy with engines, or if you've already got a spare small block laying around, this could actually be an opportunity. You'd be started with a clean, rust-free truck, and after swapping the motor, end up with something worth a lot more than the asking price. The seller admits that they bought this truck from their uncle specifically with the plan to replace the engine. But life happens. Shortly after picking it up, they found out they were having a baby. With that news, priorities shifted, and the engine swap project never got started. Rather than let the truck sit outside and slowly deteriorate, the seller has decided it's time to let it go to someone who will actually finish what they started. As far as paperwork goes, the title is still in the uncle's name, but it comes with a signed title and a bill of sale from the uncle. The seller says they'll provide an additional bill of sale themselves if needed, so you'll have no trouble getting it registered. At $2,500, this is an opportunity to pick up a rust-free, great-looking 97 GMC Sierra that just needs a heart transplant. For the right buyer, that's a steal.